it's something.
We all sit on our side.
Yeah, and it's all on an angle too, because you know I don't have a proper tripod. I should go and get a tripod and mount. So what we've got here, as I mentioned last week, are a few different materials which we'll try and find combinations of. I've got the pencil, willow stick, compressed. Just come over and watch. White, pastel, and I've got a couple of colours here. The colours I'll talk about a little bit later. What this exercise is about is for you to find how these specific materials interact with one another and what results you get in terms of clarity. So you'll see what I mean as we progress. The other thing is I want you to try and get as much out of these materials as possible. So with willow stick, you already should know that you can create a few different tones with willow. Yes? And there's set ways in which you can do that. So initially, I'll start with willow, and I'm going to treat each set as a triplet. Yes, so it's going to be 6 sets of 3. And within this, I'd like you to apply one of the materials directly as so. Try and get it as solid and smooth as possible. So that means try and get as little texture in it as possible. Because again, what we were looking for is clarity of material effects, and any texture will only confuse that. So that's just applied directly, and then this one, I'll apply it directly and then smudge it, and you'll see the difference. But I've stupidly put this on a floor joint, and so it's going to affect what it looks like. Now, when you're smudging, I always like to use the larger parts of your hand, mainly because you avoid leaving the telltale finger marks in the smudge. If you want that effect, of course, use your fingers. But as I said previously, I want it to be solid and smooth, no textures. So I either use this part of the hand or this part of the hand. You can try and do it in a couple of motions, right? So you don't need to scumble your hand across. You just need to, like this, and try and get it even around the edges. So you can see already there's a subtle difference between the direct and the smudged. And the next one will be smudged and then erased. So you're essentially creating 3 different tones from one material. Yes?
Yeah.
You could probably even get more.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Different pressure.
Look,
on
I
the
think
chart.
I'll just darken this because I want more contrast. So I'm going to use the point now with a bit more pressure. But again, when you're doing this, you're creating textures naturally. And I'd like you to try and avoid as much as possible. Okay, so you can see it's 3 distinctly separate tones using the same material. The reason why you're working flat today is because if you would work on an easel, the charcoal dust will cover everything, especially down here, and this is I want you to keep this clean. Now, the next thing I'll do is choose one material out of this and see how it interacts with the willow stick. I'm going to use this yellow piece of Conte, and I want you to not worry too much about the shape that you're doing. So I'll keep it to a leaf motif. Just keep it to a leaf type shape. So we can not worry about the shape that we're drawing, but still I want you to vary the line that you're drawing, that you're using to draw with. That should be an automatic thing to always put as much variety into it as possible. So what I don't want to see is this. Yeah? So do it with a little bit more consideration and make it feel kind of natural. Yes? Operative word always for me is natural. It's got to feel natural, and it's got to feel like it's just happened without you thinking. So that's one combination, willow stick and pastel. And you can see the pastel creates an effect on the willow stick straight, but it's not very clear. However, sometimes you want effects that aren't clear. So this is a way in which you can treat it as a the reason why I developed this is because I have more or less a science background before I did art, and this can be treated like an experiment, where you're experimenting with different sets of materials to see what combinations you can get, what the results are. If you can make notes in your journal of the more successful ones or the ones that feel good, like this. Because of the instant clarity, it felt nice, and because of because I've removed the charcoal, it went onto the paper better because there's no charcoal particles. Yes, so it's a matter of be conscious of how it feels as well when you're doing this. So the next material I could choose could be this. And I'll do the same set of 3, and then I might choose this to go on top. Yes? And that's it for the set of this set, and I'll talk about this later. Right? Is that enough for you to
Yeah.
Just a
go on?
question.
Yes?
You want to use the same 3 techniques of color on, rubbed, erased.
Correct.
No matter
Yes,
what.
so you're maximizing the tonal use of each material, so you can get an understanding of how to control the material in terms of the tones and what results you get, because the process is the same every time. This one is smudged and rubbed back. But I want you to see what the results are for each material and then put something over the top. Because different materials react differently with each other. You won't find all of the combinations in this, obviously. It's just the start. It's just a useful device for me to show you how to combine these materials. Yes?
And so some of the background colors will need to be repeated because we don't have 6.
Sure.
Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. And is there a point in doing it with white? Well, yes and no. If you do it with white, yes, you'll get a different result, obviously, when you put another material on top. And it might be good to see what happens there too. But if you don't want to use white as a background, don't. You can repeat. I could probably repeat the same thing with the willow with all of these other materials, and it would still satisfy the task. You know what I mean? Yes.
And so the 2 whites you had was Conte white.
This is a Conte pastel, and this is not a white. This is a light bluish grey.
So we can use 2 colors. Is that 2 Contes?
yes, two colors, but what I would like you to consider when you're choosing colors is their intensities. And I want you to choose colors that contrast in intensity rather than harmonize in intensity. So, you don't want, for instance, this and this together because their intensities are going to conflict. Right? The brightness is what I'm talking about. The brightness of the color will conflict with each other because they're both equally bright. Now, one thing you can start doing is think about contrasting the intensities, and you can see that, well, I can show you. This is the very light gray, and this is the yellow, and it works nicely together because they're not fighting for dominance. Whereas if I put this and this, there is immediately, which one is stronger? Now you can control that obviously by using more of one than the other, yes?
Extension.
But I want you to see if you can find a combination that works well with one, I suppose, quieter color and one louder color. You can put it that way. They should also, but they don't have to also contrast in hue. So with color, you can separate color into its constituent elements: hue, tone, and intensity. So those three elements always relate to color. Yes? Hue, tone, intensity. So hue refers to the yellow, or the green, or the grey. Tone refers to how dark or light it is. So these two, are they the same tone? Fairly similar, I would say. Now, with tone, if you can't see it with your eyes clearly, you can set your camera to monochrome or black and white and look at it through that way, and it should show you if tonally is it the same or not. Now, there might be a subtle difference between these two if you looked at black and white, but it's not going to be contrasting. It's still, if it's close together, that means it's in harmony. Whereas, what about this? Would this be harmony or contrast tonally? Contrast? I'm not sure. I reckon it would also be harmony because in terms of its lightness, in terms of its reflectivity, it could be the same. I'm not sure, but that's what my feeling is. And sometimes your feeling can be wrong. You know, that's okay. But what I'm sure of is that there's contrast in intensity and contrast in hue. Yes? There's contrast in hue, there's harmony in tone, and harmony in intensity. So whatever you choose, try and at least find two contrasts with the colors. Yes? Okay. I think that's all I need to say for the time being. You guys get started and do this. It shouldn't take you too long. And then I want to talk about this, how you can use it later.